With me is Jessica Zafra, an author, a fictionist, and a pop culture commentator. A friend, I think. A good
We'll
friend.
see about that. No, because podcasts are scary. Podcasts are scary because, especially if they're live, there are opportunities to get canceled.
Okay. We'll try to not say anything cancelable, but I think, I've been talking to you, like, I guess, like, we've been friends. Can I say that? We're friends for quite a long time. Like, parang I feel like every time I talk to you, like parang you always share like really interesting opinions. I remember like when we were in Paris, like we were just walking around and like
Yeah, that was fun.
just the I guess like the conversations I think like I won't say it's cancelable, but I think they're very honest and refreshing. Like they're not
Yeah,
filtered.
and it's a good thing they were not recorded. Yeah.
But let me just go to like how I first met you.
Yes.
Like I guess like how you knew me is like during the workshop that you organized like way back in was it 2013,
No, no, no.
2014?
Even before that, because I remember I started my blog around 2007. And then around, yeah, 2013, we had like an anniversary event because, in the 2000s, in order to get any sort of attention, you had to have some kind of event. Remember, we had an event in Mega Mall, like we borrowed the venue. And then, well, thanks for showing up considering you didn't know the other people. Actually, a lot of people went solo. We just figured, we'll find somebody to talk to. And I remember we were all there, and then I already knew Bubbles and Deo, I think, and Momel. Remember Momel? And suddenly there was a commotion. It's like may artista dito. Yeah, I think it's name of actor that we have forgotten. And so we thought you were a movie star who had graced our humble event.
Oh wait, I remember this. It was yung venue sa close to like the smart
Yeah, I think it was a smart.
okay,
Yeah, because their public relations guy was a friend of mine. He said, let's host it in Megamod.
confession. Like I don't know if I've told you this, but like even before I went to that event, like as a young gay guy, aspiring writer, I used to read your books at National Bookstore. I can't afford it back then, so I would sit for hours just reading your twisted essays.
Yeah, that's how everybody starts reading by lurking around National Bookstore and picking up a book and reading as much of it before the guard comes and takes you away. So it's sad that you can't do that anymore because National is not what it used to be. So
Yeah, like, wala na rin yata yung National Bookstore sa SM South Mall. Not that I've been there like for quite some time, but yeah, like
yeah,
that's I remember that particular corner. And one more confession, like when I was in uni, I would tell everyone that okay, like I want to be like Jessica Zafra. I mean, like that's cringe to say right now since I know you.
okay, this podcast
But
is over.
okay, a bit cringe, but like para, di ba, na para I was thinking na okay, like maybe I can be a writer. Maybe I can be a successful writer. Maybe I can like actually have like a column, like write about things I'm interested in and like make money out of it. But I guess like parang okay, like well, obviously I ended up as a corporate slave after that.
But you do right.
And you mean
You do right.
you also like parang I guess like parang I remember na you were telling people. I remember when you accepted an award before,
Mm-hmm.
like how writers are I guess like in the Philippines struggle as well. Like
Yeah.
parang that was a moment for me to realize na okay, like it's not as romantic as like parang films would tell you like parang being a writer.
Yeah.
Um but when did you realize like I guess like you were saying that that's a lot how a lot of people discover you. And I guess like that's how a lot of like gay kids or queer kids discover you. When did you first realize that okay, like you have a lot of people from the queer community who actually like follow you?
Yeah. It occurred to me recently that until I started writing my twisted column, I didn't have gay friends. I didn't have any LGBT friends because in my high school batch in Pisay, officially we had no gay people. They only came out after high school or after college. And then,
Mhm.
over the years, I had friends and I never bothered to ask whether they were straight or gay or, or purple or aliens or whatever. And then only later, did I realize, they're gay. And so I started writing Twisted. And I noticed that all the people who would come up to me and introduce themselves tended to be, gay guys. And then, uh, and then there was one day, siguro, a year into writing my column where I had like, I went to an event and I realized that I was the token straight person there because everyone there was gay. I guess because I know it's cliche to say that gay people are into the arts, but I think it's especially true in the Philippines, where creative fields are populated by queers. Yeah,
I think yeah, I think the stereotype it's a stereotype because it is a slice of
yeah,
like
yes,
reality, right? It's just that like we keep on focusing on that reality, like and think that it's like wholesale applicable to everything. But I think it's true. I think like the arts field, creative field, like advertising would be more open to like queer
yeah.
people, and I guess like would gravitate towards I guess wit.
And see in the Philippines, there's not really writing is not really considered like a career that is going to feed you, pay your rent, and pay for your children's education if you have any. And what's this? If you write well, if you make a reputation for for having a following as a writer, they will reward you by putting you on television. Television, an ancient medium, which is now also under siege. And so I was on television, and I noticed that everyone who was working on TV, well, almost everyone, I would say 85, 90% of the people I was working with were queers. So, yeah.
So do you also feel that people like queer people were attracted to like your writing because they sort of like saw themselves in I mean like I guess for me I did sort of like aspire to become a writer like you when I was young. Like do you think like parang gay kids also saw that in you not just as you as a writer but sort of like aspirational na I can say what I want like parang I can like actually I guess like parang for us queer people na we felt that we were discriminated for example like seeing you like parang fearlessly like parang voicing out your opinions and not giving a hoot about it. Like do you think like some queer people like saw themselves in or aspired to be that way?
I think that's what drew the audience to my particular kind of writing. It's the outsider perspective, because nerds and queers, we have a lot of intersections there. Um, you know, um, I grew up being told that I had to um, get a certain kind of job, behave a certain way, aspire to get married and have children, and that just didn't appeal to me. I know that the only thing I wanted to do was right, and having already disobeyed all of the things that my parents told me about, I figured I'll just say what I want, etc., etc. And I think it was also the time because remember we were coming off um, 20 years of the martial law, the martial law administration, and everyone tended to sound the same. And I think the 90s, um, being so close to EDSA 86, people felt liberated from from the old strictures, from the old ways of behaving. And so um, we felt that we didn't have to be nice. We could actually write something and be disliked. We could be honest in a way we couldn't before, because um, we came from a time where if you were disliked, there were very real consequences. And it's such a different time now, because today you can be disliked and that could translate into millions of followers who hate you and and follow you because they just want to keep on loathing you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Like especially in this I wanted to actually talk about like the shift in behavior I would say like for this generation like cuz I noticed like for the millennial generation I guess like that generation, our generation were a people pleasing
Mm-hmm.
generation. But like now I see Gen Z, for example, like parang, they're more sarcastic
Yeah.
online. Like they wouldn't like put smileys, for example, or lol at like your posts. They wouldn't try to diffuse like the tension between like conversations and just like put it out
Hmm.
there. Do you think like parang we are coming back to that period where people were, I guess, similar to like what you were doing before, like that generation na, okay, like I don't care what you think about what I think, but I'm gonna voice it
Well,
out.
I think, uh, the internet, social media, it's caused our ways of interacting with each other to evolve faster. And well,
Mm-hmm.
along the way, people realize that you don't have to be liked
Mm-hmm.
in order to be followed. In fact,
Yeah.
you have leaders of government who just continue to say crazy things because they know that
Yeah.
it'll get them the attention that they can translate into votes that keep them in power. So yeah, so we're still evolving.
What do you think about cancel culture then? Like this phenomenon of like canceling people who say controversial stuff online.
I don't know. Um, oh, I want to ask you: are there real consequences for the canceled? Because, it seems to me that there are politicians, celebrities who have been canceled many times who are still up there, who still wield influence. So it's like cancellation becomes a fight amongst ourselves. It's like, oh, we don't like him. Why is he still there? So, Harvey Weinstein's, no, his sentence was overturned. One of his sentences, anyway. Yeah. And then Kevin Spacey suddenly, he's got fellow actors in Hollywood who say, we need him back and so on because he's won his cases. So
That's true. Also, like parang I was thinking na with the recent like Israel Palestine like issue, like people are starting to realize that a lot of celebrities never have commented on like the ongoing genocide against like the Palestinians, diba? Like they started unfollowing these people. I don't know, although I don't know if that's a consequence.
mm. No, no, that's the thing. They have this movement where
Mm,
they block celebrities, and I don't know much about social media, but it's like, no, don't block them because they won't even know. Just unfollow them because if millions of you unfollow them, they will feel it. If you block it, there's voila. It might even be convenient for them. But then for that, where you cancel people for not coming
yeah.
out and saying
Well,
things, what if they have no strong feelings about it one way or the other, or they feel that they do not have the expertise in order to comment, or they feel that their jobs are on the line? We cannot compel people to toe our line. So
mhm. That's what I felt though, like parang, speaking of unfollowing and speaking of like parang canceling, I unfollowed like I used to read J.K. Rowling, for
mhm,
example. And like parang when she came out as a full on turf, like I unfollowed her and I blocked her on
mhm.
social media too. I don't know if that will affect the algorithm to sort of like I'm not sure, but I feel like um I'm also not sure if it's healthy in a way to not be exposed to these
Yeah.
opinions because how can I form my rebuttals well enough if I don't see what they're
Right.
posting,
As in,
diba?
is your hatred of someone's viewpoint so extreme that you cannot listen to them anymore in case they say something, logical, something that hits you the right way and makes you realize, hey, we might actually have things in common. And that's the thing. That's the ironic thing about cancellations. They tend to be executed by people who are on the same side. The people on the same side, and then they have a disagreement, and then canceled ka na. Meanwhile, the other side, the people that you never would have agreed with in the first place, they're all in agreement because they're all following their masters. So there. So who's disadvantaged?
Interesting observation because like yun yung criticism within the queer community that there's so much infighting within us that we always like parang look at the minor details instead of looking
Yeah.
at the bigger picture. Like parang we would
Yeah, the most violent arguments are between people who generally agree with each other.
Speaking of people we look up to who disappoint us, I know that like para I don't know if you want to bring this if it's okay to bring this up because I know that you recently looked up to someone who disappointed you and they sort of like publicly.
Yeah, well, since I wrote his obituary, that's pretty much out there. Although, because a lot of people have no sense of irony, they're like, "What is this obituary when the person is still alive?" But see, yeah, because I felt very strongly about it at the time and to this day, and I feel that it's my Darth Vader moment that has not yet come to pass, and it's taken so long that I no longer give a shit about Star Wars. Actually, so there. But I felt very strongly about it, and I felt that I had to say something even if this person was a person who was very important to me, parang actually did more to help me realize my ambitions about writing than my own parents, who from the very beginning thought this whole writing thing is such a waste of your intelligence.
So two things like but before I hop onto like the second point, like parang first thing is like parang do you feel na loyalty sort of like prevents us from, I guess, like parang saying things that we think, like parang that feeling na, okay, like, because this person, like, who we looked up to, like, parang help us, na parang, we should stay loyal to this person and like does not say anything like when they actually like parang do shit in life. Like parang do you think that parang that's a cultural thing among us Filipinos?
Well, if you uh well, since I don't have 10 children that I
Mm.
have to feed, I kind of have the freedom to take someone out of my
Mm.
life, even if uh what's it, it's even if it's
Yeah.
difficult for me. But see, I think that if you care about someone and they do something horrible, it is your obligation to call
Mm.
them out, because that they are better people than what they have done,
Yeah.
and maybe they don't realize it. In any case, you should distance yourself from that action, because um, you do not want to be seen as someone who is
Mm.
condoning that. For instance, condoning killing
Yeah.
people without,
Yeah.
EJK, etc., etc. So yeah. So and if although my case was fairly extreme, because the person was in
Yeah.
power and in a position of great influence, but I think that a friendship or a relationship that is strong enough should be able to withstand that.
Second, now going to my second point, na you as well, like a lot of people look up to you. Do you feel na parang um, you have toned down your voice or at least like parang your opinions for the sake of your following? Like, is that something that you consider in your head na parang okay, like I have to write this way because like my following is I guess this way, or is that something that you haven't considered?
No, not really. Actually, after I recently I met someone who was telling me about how much Twisted had meant
Mm,
to me, etc., etc. And I had to point out, and I find that this hurts people
yeah.
for some reason, that Twisted is not my life. It's not what I wanted to do with myself, after
Uh,
school. But it was something that I did because it was one of the few jobs that were
mm,
available to me, an aspiring fictionist. Because face it, you cannot make a living writing short stories and
in the
novels,
Philippines.
at least
Uh,
not now. Okay, in the Philippines. And so I was writing that, but um, I find that people are hurt when I say that, that's not my life. I have moved on. And recently, I had this annoying encounter with somebody who described himself as a fan. And I said, the last Twisted column came out 20 years ago. And he said, no, I saw it in 2015. I'm like, I wrote the damn thing. I should know, right? Yeah. But, well, yeah, maybe. No, and then somebody told me now, no, because people think that Twisted still exists to this day. I'm like, in what universe? But there, I started writing Twisted in the early 90s, okay? And then it was 10 years into days. So basically, Twisted the column only lasted 10 years. 10 years. 20 years ago. And it ended, and then I wrote another column, and I found that I was already bored and tired of writing in that way. I wanted to do something else. And it really annoyed me writing for another paper when they would say, na, why don't you write like Twisted anymore? Because that's over with. That part of my life is done. And also, the advantage of writing for a small paper that only people you knew and people who knew who agreed with you and you had the same liberal mindset, only those people read. And then I go to a larger people with a much larger following, and it was not as hospitable to my kind of writing as Twisted was. For instance, I could not watch a movie and tear it apart with as much glee as I did when I was writing Twisted, because it's a larger paper. There are other issues like, the advertisers, the people who support that paper and so on. So there. I don't think I have changed for the audience, but I have changed as a person because face it, people get older. As in, I was in my 20s when I started writing Twisted, and I was a lot angrier when I was younger. And it's a good thing that I'm not that angry anymore, or else, my head would have exploded long ago. It's just, you get less angry. You realize that um, being angry doesn't really get you anywhere. It just gets you a reputation for being an angry person. And if I still behave that way, I would be Karen, everywhere I go. Because who were the people I was complaining about? I was complaining about bad service. I was complaining about, waiters, taxi drivers, etc. And it is also kind of cruel on my part because we were not equal, and I was making fun of these people. So as you get older, you realize a lot of the things that you did were not
Mhm.
fair, and I acknowledge that.
It's interesting, like parang acknowledging like a character development. But also I was thinking that putting it like I guess like framing it through the lens of the queer experience. Do you think like parang Twisted Jessica was like you that was your drag sort of like it wasn't you, but you were sort of like assuming this character for your
Um, well, it's true. I was assuming a character, and that character was somebody from the indie rock scene because that was the scene that I really enjoyed. So there, yeah. So I wasn't really outright going for the drag the drag experience.
do
No.
you feel that people have a hard time separating like the Twisted Jessica from who you really are? Like do they assume that the totality of who you are?
Uh, yes, and it's not entirely their error because it is true that the voice I was using was the voice I had at the time, and those were the things that I really did feel strongly about. And since I always write in the first person, well, I always wrote in the first person there, so um, it led them to believe, I guess, that my column was a kind of diary, and in many ways it was. So um, it's not entirely their mistake to think that that was me for a time, but that is no longer me. I am a middle-aged person now. I am thinking of things like menopause. Yeah.
Do you think that that's something that I guess like for a lot of like writers, like artists, people have a hard time like separating like the characters like we put out there from like who we really are? Like is there even like a separation from like the art from the artist? Or do we need to like para even separate it?
I think I think yes, it is difficult to separate the art from the artist. Um, uh, I have the advantage of having been a comparative literature major. And so, we were reading all these great works of literature and reading a bit of biographical detail about the authors. And even then, even in college, I knew that, wow, some of the world's greatest artists are complete shits. As in, they were shit human beings. I'm glad I never have to meet them. But then, I tended to think of the writing that they produced as the best of them. This is the best they could manage. They may have been complete failures as human beings, but as artists, wow. So, I'll separate it, and, I'll think of it as the redeeming
Mhm.
value.
So I'm thinking a lot of like parang on Twitter, for example, you have a lot of like these mostly gay wannabe celebrities that trying to like really provoke people. I guess like in the hope that they will be, I don't know.
Yes, because, yeah, if people hate you, if people like you, they'll follow you. If people hate you, they'll still
Uh
follow you.
to basically like parang watch out for something that you will say that will make them hate you even more. So parang feeling ko like the pipeline
Hmm.
na okay, like if you can't like me, I'll just become someone you really hate and still grab your
Yeah, and
attention.
I will use you to
Yeah.
make money, diba?
But that's something that I noticed na parang iniisip ko na, does it work? Like especially like parang for people in government, for example, who also do it, 'di ba? They just try to trigger you in a way, like parang to sort of like gain your attention. And I'm thinking na, is there a way for us to like stop like making shitty people popular? Like parang, or it's just human nature na parang okay, like parang people know that some people will follow them anyway, like parang because they say something like really cancelable or something. And people use that to their advantage in a way. So is that something that we can actually go beyond?
The way to keep people from benefiting from becoming rich off of, from monetizing our repugnance, as one way of putting it, is to just forget that they exist. But people can't do that. As in, well, you hate what he said, then never listen to him again. But no. As in, I guess there's something in human nature that says, no, I have to listen to his next horrible statement so I can continue to, keep my hatred alive. So when really, the thing is to just forget that they're alive. But people can't do that. And I think it's also, yeah, that's the way social media, that's what social media has done to us. We just cannot let something go.
And yeah, like I would say the same for me. Like parang feeling ko na I work as a communicator, like parang I need to be on social media. And sometimes like I feel like this is consuming too much of my time. I don't want to be updated with the latest trends all of the time. Like I don't want to be part of the discussion all of the time. But you feel like you have to be because like otherwise like parang you'll miss out on things and like I guess like the constant need to be relevant and always like comment on things and it's exhausting but at the same time like parang it feels like we're all trapped in this. Like, parang we're forced to like parang hear each other out.
That is the one great thing about aging. You reach a point where you just no longer give a shit. As in, I remember when Facebook was rolled out, I'm like, I'm not getting on Facebook. And initially, and I've never been on Facebook. I've had a Facebook page for my blog that was run by a friend, but I myself have never been on Facebook. And the thing that initially made me dislike Facebook was the whole notion that someone could be your friend. I thought that it cheapened the word friend, which is one of the most important terms to me, because well, friends are my real family. And how dare you, as in you come out of nowhere, you ask me to friend you, wrong grammar pa, and then what about shared history, which I feel is the basic requirement for friendship. Because face it, I realized recently that you don't even have to like your friends. Diba? You just have to have shared history and an understanding of your natures. So you understand each other there, and you cannot get that from someone that you have only
Mm.
met
Is
online.
that like family though? Like parang you just have to like accept your family even if you don't like them.
Yeah, something like that.
So going back to like I guess like parang queer people like in spaces that you are present in. I know that you've been having these like writing workshops recently and you've met a lot of like queer
Yes.
people. Like I know some of them like Don, Hosian and also like you've met you introduced actually Pepe.
Yeah, great. Now you've outed them all. It's interesting because when I started doing the workshops 10 years ago, and you guys were the first. Um, it was predominantly gay, and then maybe a couple of straight girls. Diba? And it's been like that. Although recently we've actually had um, people who are not queer join us. So I guess it's because, the workshop has been around for a long time. So people outside of my core audience have heard about it and joined.
Seeing like parang you have like parang straight women. And I guess like you I think may isang straight guy sa workshop namin, 'di ba? There was a can't remember.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think of them as the token heterosexuals. No, seriously, I used to have, in the 2000s, 2010s, um, my advertising friends who were all gay men, we would all get together for my birthday party, and we'd have a birthday dinner, and then realize that everybody there was queer except me. So it was like, I don't know, it was like the bench underwear show. I did drop a bomb. There goes the gay population.
Do you think like parang may difference on opinions? Like for the queer people who attend your workshops, for example, like do they have you observed like parang a difference in opinions or like parang at least perspectives, even like the stories that they write or like essays that they write during your workshops? Um, is there a commonality between like parang the gay experience? I don't know if there is, but like have you observed anything against or like versus like the straight experience?
No, I haven't. I haven't, but in general, everyone who takes the workshop, you know, um, because I always ask, what is it you want to write about? And the number one thing that is keeping them from writing is, I want to write this, but who cares? Who wants to read this stuff? And I always say, you do. This is important to you, so write it. And it cuts across all categories, whether they're queer, whether they're straight. That's the thing. They feel that their experience is not worth writing about, but it is. And I
Yeah.
guess it's just that for the queers, it tends to be more dramatic because in order to earn the right just to
Yeah.
say what this experience was, they've had to crawl through all
Yeah.
sorts of shit. As in, people telling them that there's something wrong with them, you shouldn't be like this, you should be different. There, um, um, all the people have feel that there is an obstacle to writing, but in order to even get to the part where you acknowledge the obstacle, um, queers have to crawl through a
Yeah.
lot more shit to get there.
So we have to I guess like that's what makes us queens, right? Like we become dramatic about it
Yes.
and like try
Mhm.
to not exaggerate, but I guess like parang try to make light of like parang the drama of like being queer.
Yeah, but yeah, I think yeah, that's so you mentioned making light of things. I think that's one more thing I have in common with the queer community, where terrible things happen, and I will present them as comic because, well, um, I guess that's one way I have of dealing with these terrible things that have happened. And I think, especially gay men also have that, where, suddenly your traumas become the stuff of comedy.
That's part of life, I would say.
Yeah, I sometimes say in my workshop, happiness is counterproductive because if you're already happy, why the hell do you have to write?
So maybe you can invite like people to your upcoming workshops.
If they're interested, they can find the details on my Instagram at Jessica Zafra's Cats.
All right. Thank you, Jessica, and hope to see you soon.